Welcome everyone to the latest session at LocalGov Drupal Week, Tuesday's afternoon session. Thank you so much for coming. My name's Aaron. I'm the community lead at LocalGov Drupal. The session today or now is how to build a LocalGov Drupal website in 6 months. And we've got Lisa Kennedy, who's the senior product manager, and Dolan Chelik, head of design at the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames. So before we go into the session, I just want to take the opportunity to thank our event sponsors, Anatech, who are our developers. They hold the current developer contract for LocalGov Drupal, been around a long time, and Agile Collective, who were the previous developers through the alpha and beta phases, and they currently hold our support and hosting contract, and Big Blue Door, who are currently sponsoring Mark Conroy to work on the platform. And as I'm sure we will hear, I've also been working with Kingston and Lisa and her team. Thanks to all our council and supplier subscribers, and also our supporting partners who've contributed so much. And basically, without your support, financial and otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do these sorts of events. So we're very grateful, and it's been a cracking week so far. If you're not familiar with Zoom, you can change and toggle how you view the meeting in the top right. It should default to showing the screen share, but you have options as well. So have a look and play with those. We'll be using the chat for questions. So if you drop questions as we go, Lisa, should we cover questions at the end, or would you like, do you prefer?
Yeah, I think just at the end. So we'll make sure there's time left at the end to do so, but it'd be good to do it at the end.
Lovely. Okay. And we are recording the session. So if you could please just check and make sure you're muted on audio, that should be in the bottom left, just to keep it on track. And if you turn off your camera during the session, that is better for the environment. And also, and then once we're into questions, feel free to come on camera again. So I'm going to hand over to Lisa and Dolan. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Erin. So hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our presentation. Myself and our head of design, Dolan, will be taking you through the presentation today. We're going to cover off how we designed and built our Kingston website in a very tight period of time, focusing on priorities, research and design, the content migration, and also internal buy-in. So start with how to build a website in 6 months. There is an asterisk there, simply because we didn't exactly build it in 6 months. My apologies if we've lured you here under false pretenses. The development build of our website took just under 6 months. However, we did do work prior to this so that we could save some time, and because we had to get our website live before our contract with our current provider ran out. So the purpose of this presentation will go through how we made the decisions that we did, how to allow us to meet that tight deadline and to create an awesome website. So this is our team. This is the team that worked on it. This is the web team at Kingston Council. So everyone here played a massive part in our website build and in our design and everything. They've been an awesome team through it all, and I just want to give them a shout out because they were just brilliant. So I want to start with thinking about like how much is too much. How many pages do you think we have on our current, or we had on our old website? We had over 4,000 pages of content, which is a lot more than what I anticipated before we started looking at the actual numbers. And also thinking about how little is too little. Well, we had only 6 months to complete this migration. Now, we did work prior to the actual build, but also when we got our website partner on board, we only had about 6 months left to do it. So we had quite a lot of work to do with this migration. As much as we wanted to automate much of the migration, most of the time took up actually manually migrating the content, but I'll talk a little bit that later. So thinking about our website as a whole, the problems that we had with our current website existed in various forms. First of all, the platform we had limited our abilities to make customized changes due to high costs. It was costing a lot of money a day to make any changes that we wanted to do, which meant that we had made very few changes to the site since that previous incarnation had went live. So we moved to Jadu in 2020, and since 2020, we'd made basically no additional features or functionality to that website because it cost us too much to do. We also found that there was no consistent design on site, so there was numerous colors all over the place, and it just basically looked really old and it didn't look very welcoming. And then the other part with the website that was really wasn't great was the fact that when it was last designed internally, the service needs were met, but user needs were not considered. It wasn't anybody's fault. There just wasn't a team in place to help understand the user needs for that website. And therefore, they designed the website just focusing on the service needs and not really considering how a user would interact with the site. However, they would find the information they needed where they would navigate to. And then the last problem, one of the last problems we had was that over that last 5 years, content had been continually added to the site without really consideration to the users, and adding new pages and new sections, and just based on the idea of like where you think the content might be best placed to go, not really looking at the analytics or the user journeys or getting the user feedback. It really led us to the point that our navigation was a bit unwieldy. It had way too many layers, and users would have to click multiple times, more than necessary, to get where they needed to be. So we knew that this needed to be tidied up and included in this website project as well. So with the web team, we created a vision for our website, which kept the focus on the user and having accurate information. However, there were some things to take into consideration. Our old platform was Jadu. The contract was due to end in September 2025, and there wasn't any budget to dual host our platforms. So our only option was to move everything by this time. And just to say that when we started looking at this project in May 2024, the procurement process started, but we didn't actually get our agency onboarded until January 2025. So it took over 6 months. Well, I think it was about 5 months in total for procurement. But after that, it didn't take much time to do this work. We had to be off the platform by September 2025. We also knew that the content migration would be difficult as there were limited Jadu APIs for automated migration. So we had to really look carefully at how we would do this. And I'll focus on this a little bit later. So knowing all this, we had to establish what our priorities were and would be. And this would lead us through our decision-making in this project. The time was the biggest factor. We had to go live by the end of September 2025. There was no room for that, no room for error in that. And to do this, we wanted to use as much out-of-the-box functionality as possible, thereby not having as many bespoke and unique functionality in the first iteration. So to get this website live, we had to focus on the must-have features that we needed to go live. And as we didn't have our agency onboarded to help guide us at this point, we followed other LocalGov Drupal councils to help determine what our designs would be. So doing those designs up front, early and internally, saved us a lot of time when we actually got our agency onboarded as well. And we were able to hand over our designs to the agency, who could then feed back on them. And then the last priority, as I mentioned, because navigation was so bad, that we had to create better navigation. This is one of the biggest problems with our site, and we need users to be able to find what they need to find. So with a new design and components, we had the option to make this website more user-friendly. So our partner, Big Blue Door, was onboarded in January 2025, and they had some experience with Jadu, so it was good knowing that they could share that experience and we could rely on them for that. They helped us prioritize our tech requirements and gave feedback on our designs to get them ready for development. There was some bespoke development that we did do, so we didn't just do completely out of the box. We did do a few extra things. So our comms team have been begging for a newsletter pop-up for a long time, so we developed that with them. And also we did some more optimization around our search, because we know that's another area of the website that was very poor, and also one that was heavily relied on by our users. So I'm going to pass over to Dolan, who's going to talk through our research and design. Over to you, Dolan.
Thank you, Lisa. We can go to the next slide. As you have seen from the team structure, we had a full pack as a user-centered design team. So we started by identifying and understanding both the internal and external users of our websites, from residents to businesses, to the contact center agents who are using the website quite a lot to answer the phone calls they are receiving. And we used our analytics to identify our top 10 most visited pages, most search keywords, and most visited service pages as well. Next, please, Lisa. So meanwhile, by the way, just to note that this presentation is not kind of following a linear procedure because there was like so many things. There were so many things going in parallel. We are trying to cover everything as much as we can, but some parts of these work were kind of like overlapping with each other. Meanwhile, we have done the UX research and the audits as well. We have done the comparative analysis, looking at the overall experience, the content quality and visual design of other LGD and other system using console websites. We deconstructed their websites to understand the design patterns and again the navigation and the content structure, both on the whole website and on page levels. And then we have done the UX audit on our own website, looking at the visual design, again, the structure and the user journeys, trying to understand the pain points of our own website, the accessibility and the technical performance as well. Next, please, Lisa. So while all that discovery work was going on, our content designers also worked on some drafts to structure the new landing pages for the services because they are quite different on LGD than what we had on Jadu. So we worked with the service areas, actually 13 service areas, to review our key research findings and user insights, shared these with them, and discussed our proposed new structure for the landing pages. And then we asked them to go away, take all that information and the insights we shared with them, and then review our proposed service landing and sub-landing pages, come back to us with their comments, and check if the suggestions they have made during the workshops were applied correctly, and flag any missing or incorrect information from the current site, because we kind of used what we had on the current website to structure these new pages. Next, please, Lisa. This is kind of a tiny bit of a screenshot from one of our workshops that was run by our service designer and content designer. They worked quite intensely on these pages to make sure that we were covering everything the service areas needed, but building on all the findings that we have already done before on the discovery from the user insights and the data we had. Next, please, Sarah. So again, meanwhile, our content designers' responsibilities were looking at the header and the footer, the navigation, redesigning the information architecture of the whole website, and designing the service landing and sub-landing. Sorry, there's a wording mistake there. Landing and sub-landing pages, and then designing the step-by-step pages because it wasn't a feature in Jadu. And what they were not doing was rewriting the copy and fact-checking the content itself, changing the content page structures, and converting the documents like PDF files to HTML pages. Next, please. So basically, our content designers reviewed the user journeys, suggested their improvements, tested them with the participants, and then they did the content review for the migration preparation, developed the new navigation, and designed the new components, like with all the designers and the researchers included, designed the new components to inform the users for more effective and for better engagement as well. And then they started the iterations. Next, please. So the content design work helped us to simplify the navigation. They provided less interaction, less effort for the users to complete their tasks. We have put in top tasks at the top of the service landing pages so that the users could access to the most used tasks easily. We developed some promotional components that were visually distinct to signpost users to potential relevant content or other external resources they can get help from. And we also worked on the contact information component for the users to find and understand how to contact us when they need it. Next, please. So again, at the same time, for the UX and UI design part, we kind of stole the design from the best practices, because good design copies and great design steals. We built up on the already known and investigated design systems such as GDS. And we looked at the LocalGov Drupal's demo website a lot. And I think this is the part as the design community where we got the most support from our agency, kind of guiding us with their own experience and telling us what was working on like other websites and what was not working for them too. Next, please. And we completed the design system, including the branding and the components and all the page templates following the LocalGov Drupal's available out-of-the-box templates. And the next one. Next, please. Okay, this one. These are some examples from the components that I mentioned earlier, the promotional parts where we try to distinct visually the components to direct people to other useful resources. Next, please. So, and then last part of the UX design was the homepage design, because it's not a template. It was built as a custom development. And then we worked with our comms team a lot because they own this page actually. And we kind of balanced the user needs for this page, the homepage, while meeting the requirements and the needs of our communications team. And next, please. So back to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, Dolan. So apart from like as mentioned before, the content migration was a big area for us, and one that we knew could probably cause us quite a few problems. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about our approach to the content migration, which was a combination of automated and manual migration. So we completed the automated migration in early February 2025. We only did one migration of content overall through automated process, but we knew there'd be significant manual work involved with this. So this is an example of how we looked at our migration. So we had two content types listed here in the Jadu content types, documents and documents pages. I had no idea what's the difference between the two, by the way, but they were there, and they had mainly most of our service page information on it. And then we would automate them we would automatically migrate them into service pages. So they'd go to one page type in LocalGov Drupal, and then there was manual work involved in changing those pages to service pages, guide pages, or step-by-step pages. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of work involved, manual work involved in being able to do this. Big Blue Door were great in that they managed to identify some guide pages in Jadu that could be moved as well straight to the guide page content type, rather than having to do that manually. But that wasn't perfect. We still had to check mostly all of our pages as well. And with 4,000 pages of content, there was so much work involved with that. So this solution wasn't ideal for us, but it was the best one for us considering the circumstances. We had to consider what would happen with all the content that would be updated on the current live site between the migration and also going live with the new site. We considered doing a later update near to go live to update those changes, but that would actually mean that we would overwrite all the manual work that had been done by our content designers, and that was about 3 or 4 months worth of work. And also the navigation was different from the old site to the new site as well. We also considered, do we have enough time to make all the manual changes required? So it meant that we actually had to prioritize what was important to us. So to mitigate the issue around updating live content, we ran reports in Jadu weekly, identifying any content updates that had happened the previous week. And then someone in the team would then go and manually update the same content on the equivalent LGD site. We would do this on a weekly basis early on in the process, but as we got closer to migration, then the whole team got involved with doing those changes in real time. So when they got notified of a change on Jadu, they would then apply that change onto LGD. And just for context, we have over 50 content authors who can update content on a daily, weekly basis. So it was a lot of work. And when you add in manual changes, there will undoubtedly be user error. and inconsistencies. So in the end, our web admins who are responsible for this checked all those reports multiple times, so that we only actually, at the end of it, had a handful of complaints where the content didn't match from the old site to the new site. So actually it wasn't too bad. However, I think this is an area that we would probably need to improve on moving forward. So not just aside from the recent updates as well, the other parts to the migration was we had multiple review rounds. We had firstly reviewed when the content was moved over. We made sure that it was readable, that it was in good format, that it was accessible, that it was formatted correctly. So we did that in the first round. The second review included being able to add links. So internal links, once we knew what those page URLs were, we'd be able to add them and add additional detail, add additional content. And then when we moved to beta, the third review meant that the service teams were asked to review their content as well. So there was additional eyes on that content. And then we did a smoke review at the end, which was like the top 100 pages that are viewed. So we made sure that all that work, all those pages were reviewed and they were optimized to the best possible way that they could be. So in and aside from that, our content designers were building new navigation pages that Dolan mentioned earlier, adding PDF downloads as well, which also highlighted a problem for us, just how many PDF downloads we had on the website. I think our content designer, Amy, spent about a week just doing the PDFs for the planning section alone. So we know that's something we need to pick up moving forward. So this wasn't the perfect way to operate, and it did open up questions about our timings of migration. Also, questions if we needed to do the IA navigation work during this project as well, because theoretically we could have left that till after we went live with the new site. However, we knew it was a problem that we had to deal with, and we did it. And I'm still happy with the route that we took. There is something that we can think about retrospectively now, how we'd go about things, but actually the team handled it brilliantly and they did an amazing job. So big shout out to Amy, Andy, Sherelle, Ross, and Neil, who were all involved with that. And so the last part of this presentation covers, and I've called it It's All Political just to make a light touch to it, but it's about the time and effort it took to get internal buy-in for this website. So this was my first job in local government, and I quickly found out some very hard truths here. Councils don't have big budgets to play with. People want council money to be spent appropriately, and everyone has opinions about how our website should look. So how do we get around this, and how do we get people on board with what we want to do here? So throughout the process from May 2024 to 2025, we undertook internal tasks to get buy-in for the change of the website for this for the changes of this website, for the re-platform and the redesign. Our procurement process took 5 months. This was a massive shock to me. I've never experienced it take such a long time, and also what was involved with it as well. When I was initially planning this project, I thought it would take a month. So I was very naive in my approach with this, and that we would actually have our website live by December 2025. Those were my actual plans. I was so wrong. But having said that, during waiting for the procurement to be completed, we did that research and design that was mentioned earlier by Dolan. So we used up that time where possible to get as much out of it. So we weren't just waiting for this to happen. We did as much what we could without that agency on board. We also undertook some service workshops, which took about 4 months. We spoke to about 19 services, and we asked them basic, simple questions like, what is wrong with our current website? What do you think works on the website? What would you like to see in the new one? And is there anything we should know or consider that's happening during this project timeline as well? Now, we came out with over 400 requirements in these workshops, which we're not going to do all those, and we're not going to implement all of those. However, it was a good way to explain to everybody what we were doing and why we were doing it. It was also a way to engage people and understand if there were any gaps in our knowledge or things that are happening that might affect our project. So it was really good to reach out to them, to hear their feedback, and also to fill those gaps that we might have as well. Also, councillors wanted to be involved with this, and it was a great way to get their opinion, to allow us it was a great way to get their opinion, but also to allow us to explain what we were doing and why we were doing it. However, it did take 2 months to organise. Trying to get councillors together is hard, and we didn't reach as many people as we would like. So that's something that we take on board, or we need to know if councillors need to be involved with something to get them on board as early as possible. We brought everyone on the journey with us, and it made our intentions clear to them about our scope and our goals. So we stuck to our goals. We had this scope signed off by our senior leadership team and also the web project board. If anyone questioned why we were doing the things that we were doing, we would always refer to this document, what was in scope and out of scope. and we would expect people to respect that document as well. It really helped conversations where people expected more from this project. Like I said, we had 6 months effectively to get it done. We had to compromise and make some really tight decisions. So not only did we have the scope document, we had our principles document as well. We shared these multiple times with people, and we found having these documents ready could help, and they could be added to presentations or could be sent to people if anyone really questioned about our scope or our approach to how we were doing this website came up. We had the scope document and the principles there that could help us with that. And then the other part of it was prior to going live. So there was a request from our then assistant director about having a beta site live before a full launch. I was actually against this because I felt it would hold things up and could produce some more problems during this tight timeline that we already had. However, I agreed that we would do this for 2 to 3 weeks. And it was actually worked out really well in the end because it gave residents and councillors time to give us feedback. It also gave those services extra time to review their sections, as some had not yet actually reviewed their pages by that point. So having that additional time did help them to do that. We also showcased the site to internal staff. We walked them through the site. We showed them the decisions that we'd made and why we'd made them. And we did the similar thing with councillors as well. So we engaged everybody in it from the beginning, from the workshops right to the end, so they can see what the final website looked like. We were also very clear to everybody, this is not the end. Just because you don't have the feature you asked for now doesn't mean that you can't have it later. It just meant we had to prioritize certain things to make sure we would be off of our old platform and into a new one before the contract was up. And we also had feedback forms for residents as well and for internal staff, so that everybody could still give their feedback through different methods as well. And then the last part was training people up on our CMS. So I mentioned earlier we have over 50 people that needed to be trained. We did this at a point when the website was about 95% finished. That did mean that there were some features we couldn't train people up on at the time before go live, but those were features that they might not need to use, like, for example, web forms. They came a little bit later, and we knew we could train people up on them a little bit later. We got the main things sorted as well. So being able to create content, being able to add whatever you needed to add to that content, and then also the workflow process as well to get it published. Our team did a brilliant job with this. So Ross was the person who created videos and materials, and all the training sessions were shared between our 3 admins, Ross, Sherelle, and Neil. One point to make is that when we were ready to go live, some people had really forgotten the training. So it was really key that we had refresher sessions set up as well, so to alleviate anyone who's going to panic about not knowing how the CMS worked. We were very clear with our communications about when things were going to happen with our web authors. So them knowing how to use it was really good, but also having those videos were a real lifesaver as well. So we went live. We went live on the 19th of August, 2025. Something I didn't mention is that we actually we had a microsite on Jadu as well, so we had to migrate the Kingston Heritage microsite. So that went live a month later. So it went live just a few weeks before our contract with Jadu ended. So we actually hit our deadline, which was great. So what we learned from this is do your procurement as early as possible. I was really caught out by that 5 months. It was really long. It was quite painful. Do it as early as possible so it won't prevent. If you do rely on an agency partner to help you with a lot of things, get it done as soon as possible. Take your staff and your colleagues on the journey with you. If councillors need to be involved, plan it in as early as possible. And the colleagues can really help you fill gaps you might not realise if something's going on. So, for example, our council tax team told us, well, we send out our council tax letters at this date, so make sure you're not putting a website live then. Fair enough. We weren't going to put the website live during that period, but it was really good to get that feedback we may not have realised at the time. The scope, document scope, and share widely and regularly. Always handy to have that one document, especially if it's signed off by senior leadership team and by senior people as well, because you know if anyone does try to creep something in there, you can go, well, no, actually, it's not on the document scope, so you can't have it. Always something to actually keep in mind. Plan for your CMS training early. It can take a while, especially if you have as many web authors as we do, and then pick the right point to train them up. So when all the features are ready, and also during a time that they remember what to do. And also documenting design and track changes, because we did our designs internally when we were sharing them with Big Blue Door. There was a lot of back and forth about changes and things that conversations about things that had to change and be amended. Documenting them on Figma was a godsend, and being able to do that meant that we could keep track of anything we discussed and any changes that we wanted to make. And so overall learnings of what helped us is thinking about what can be done whilst you're waiting for other things to happen. So that procurement, taking 5 months was a pain, but we managed to get our research and design done in time. So by the time our agency was onboarded, we could hand them effectively our stuff without too much trouble. Now, it doesn't mean that everything was perfect. It wasn't, but we've done the bulk of the work before that, which was good. I think leaning on your agency partner when stuck with prioritization issues was really helpful as well, because they could tell us how much time or effort would go into something, so you could weigh up the benefit of that feature in the end as well. Like priorities and let them guide your decision making. Our priority was time. It forced us into a corner with what we had to deliver, but it actually really worked out for us in the end. And then compromising as well. So fancy features can come after launch. You don't have to come for live. They can come after launch. Your website is never done. You're always continuing to iterate and move forward with that. That's an agile way of working. And that's something that we're really keen to get out to everybody. We're not done when this website is live. We want to do more with it. And we moved to LocalGov Drupal so that we could scale up, which was something that Jadu couldn't offer us. And being pragmatic, compromising when needed always helps as well. So the future for us, what does the future look like? Well, now that we're live on our site, content improvement. So we're getting through those 4,000 pages of content. We want to streamline what is there. We want to try and reduce the number of pages, but also ensure content accuracy, and also design pages to help users engage more with the content now that we've got newer components that can help us do that. So our content designers are working through that right now. Everyone's asking for a chatbot. But our chatbot is going to be based on having good content in place. So once our content's in place, we will be looking at a chatbot or AI assistant, which will then scrape our website and help people find what they need to find on the site and potentially chat with our contact center. PDFs are a massive problem, as I mentioned. We need to reduce how many we have, and also look at the accessibility of these. We have a lot in our website, so we're really keen about this PDF importer that could be coming at some point. But we also need to think about what we're doing with PDFs and how we can get them accessible, because a lot of them aren't. So there's a lot of work that needs to be involved there. We want to explore the web forms and microsites platforms as well, because those are really key to help us understand what we can scale up, and also helping the services that require forms, but also microsites to really promote their services. Where our website can't do it, our microsites can do it as well. And now that we've got that platform, we can definitely move forward with that. So we are at the end of the presentation, and thank you for listening and for coming. If anyone's got any questions, myself and Dolan and some of the team are on here as well, are happy to answer those questions.
Fantastic, Lisa. Thank you, Dolan. Thank you, Lisa. That was brilliant. I really had a strong sense of how much of a one-year sprint that was. And I think you did take a good break afterwards, but I remember how much of an effort it was to get to launch.
Yeah, I took a 2-week holiday for the first time. It's a very long time after launch. So yeah, it was very full on, I'm not going to lie, but we did a lot in a short period of time, and I think a lot of it was prioritization. It was about making sure we were doing the right things, questioning what we were doing, and making sure it was in the right place that we wanted it to be at, knowing that we could make those changes once we were live as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really valuable lesson. I had a few questions, and some of which you answered, so I'm going to cross them out. But we've got a few in the chat, so I'm going to go through those in order. So, Jashina, and for people on board, like if you want to come off, unmute and answer your question as well, you're very welcome to. I'm happy to answer them and ask them to Lisa and Dolan. So I'll start with the first one, and Jazz, if you want to sort of join in, feel free. So beyond cost savings, what key benefits have you experienced from moving from Jadu to LocalGov Drupal?
Flexibility, being able to do a lot more things, what we couldn't do with Jadu before, the flexibility of being able to do that. The community as well is something I think is actually a huge, huge benefit of moving to LocalGov Drupal, that everybody is at different stages in their journey, but can share that experience and also share their features as well. So if someone's building something, we could get on the back of that. I think even though we're still early on in our journey there, I think for us that has been really, really crucial, because we are becoming one big community who's sharing our research and our insights, and we're all working to the same goals, just in different locations. So that for us has been a massive, massive benefit. Cost savings definitely have been a benefit as well, but also the scalability. So the fact that we can scale up and we're continuing to iterate. So that being static for 5 years, the fact that nothing had really happened in those 5 years was terrible for us. And it doesn't do well for our residents either. So I think that's what's really key for me. Dawn, if you get anything to add to that, happy for you to add to that.
No, I think you covered the major things. I'm not trying to undervalue the work that we have all put in this, but we had kind of a low bar with our Jadu platform. Actually, it was covering just the basics, not doing much for the business needs, let alone the user needs. So by comparing them is not really fair because LGD is providing a lot more than what we used to have.
Cool, thank you. I guess building on that, one of the things I was wondering about, you mentioned you went to the migration going from the sort of Jadu model to service pages, made total sense, and then this sort of manual division to service pages, guides, step by step. I didn't hear you mention subsites at all. Did that come into that, or is that sort of later on? And obviously that's
we haven't done any
sort of microsites sort of section and consideration. Is that the sort of one of the next
we're not
things?
at the subsites point yet. So we actually, when we looked at the Kingston Heritage, we thought that could be a subsite, but then we realized it's probably better as a microsite. So that's something we will explore moving forward, like what would be better as a subsite with like a better, different look and feel from the really corporate Kingston branding. Like for example, weddings and ceremonies, they might be a really good subsite option there because they're revenue and they want to make money. They might be served better by the subsites function, but we haven't explored that one yet.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense that isn't what you prioritize. And the approach you took. Yeah. Simon Gray asks, did you have CXM/Connect to factor into the migration equation too? So I think that might be the sort of other Jadu product, which is maybe the more.
No, we
didn't. Did you just have Jadu?
We
the
just had
CMS?
the CMS. Yep. So we
Okay.
just had the CMS. So we didn't have any of those other kind of features like case management or anything like that. We just had it. So that made it again easier for us to consider when moving over. We didn't have those integrations. So all our integrations from our site go out to the third-party websites rather than have any CRM integration, which we should have with our council, but we don't have that currently. So it did make that a lot easier, to be fair.
Is that coming when you mentioned web forms in terms of the future? Is that part of that maybe closer coupling of website?
Potentially, yeah. I think forms are always something that we're going to be looking at, but not in the near future, but maybe in the far future. Definitely, we want to be looking at our overall service, our overall function.
Mm-hmm. Okay, lovely. Now, Ellen asks, I'd like to know what the team looked like. How many designers/service designers/content designers/project managers did you have? Which you did have on a slide, Ellen.
Did have it on the slide. So we have get her back up on the slide. Yeah, we had 3 web admins who kind of do a lot of content work, who do a lot of changes to the site as well. So they're here to help our web authors. We had 2 content designers. We had 2 content designers, and we had Yep. So we had 3 web admins. We had 2 content designers, which are Amy and Andy. Dawn is head of design, helped out with the UX design. Zoe is our service designer. And we had one analytics consultant, and Ayu as a web analyst joined later. And then we had 1 user researcher as well. So we did have other people pitch in at certain points, but this was the core team. So it was actually quite a small team to do quite a lot of work. That's why the content designers are amazing and did so much here.
And is that still the same, the makeup of your team? Is that the same, or has it changed since launch?
It's currently the same, but I'm arguing for some other roles to be brought into my team now. So our team is still relatively new. It was only really formed right before we started this project when I started 2 years ago. So we're still a new team, but we're still lots of roles I think that we could possibly do in our team. And I'm hoping that I could argue the case to get that in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ellen has another question, which is, how did you hold back the demands of business as usual so that you could get on with this project? Which is a really, good question. How do you balance the fact that you still had to keep the website updated? You mentioned this sort of dual process of content changes, and then that sounded a lot of work, but I guess you also had the business as usual anyway. How did that all work?
Yeah, so our web admins, the 3 web admins, Sherelle, Neil and Ross, they are technically responsible for business as usual. So they kind of split their time between BAU and web project stuff. So they would then assist the content designers on work if it was required. So if we had our task, we did 2-week sprints. So if there were some tasks that required project work, then they would have them in their board. Or if they had some BAU to do, we would then prioritize what was needed on that day or that week, for example. So they would know what their priorities were to be done at the end of the week. So knowing what it was and what you'd bring into sprint would help us prioritize like what needed to be done over what thing. So if it was a BAU thing that needed to be done, you could tell it was urgent over a project, then it would take priority. But actually, if there was some BAU that wasn't urgent, then project would take priority over that. And it was about sharing those tasks as well and communicating with each other about what they could and couldn't do. So if someone couldn't pick it up, then maybe someone else could. So we kept those discussions, and we have daily stand-ups as well. And Neil, Sherelle and Ross are really good at having daily conversations between them about what they're capable of and what might need to be put aside. So that was a bit of a balance, but it just depended on what the task was, really, and that's how we balanced out what was needed.
Cool, thank you. Ellen, I don't know if you wanted to follow up with anything on that. I can't see where you are, feel free to.
No, that's just really helpful. Thank you very much. We're just at the very, very beginning of the process, but we're hoping to go content first. So we're just getting all our ducks in a row.
Yeah.
So
Remind me which council you're with, Ellen.
Sorry?
Which council are you with again?
Mid Sussex.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I'm really keen that we can help as many councils as possible. So if anyone does have any questions, please do reach out to us. We can all learn from each other here, and we're happy to share our learnings with other people. So please, happy for people to reach out.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. And you're on Slack. So that's one way you can just message Lisa on Slack if you've got any questions, or put it more publicly. So Shane at Luton. Now, I'm not sure, Shane, that I quite understand your question. So you might want to come off mute. I'll read it out, and then maybe you could follow up. So what web development languages did you use in Drupal to develop the Kingston Heritage site?
Yeah, so this is something that I'm just curious with, because I'm interested in web development languages and coding myself. It's just my inner geek.
Yeah.
So did you use JavaScript, CSS, HTML?
Okay, right. So I think it's maybe you need to explain what microsite is. Maybe that's what you're not sure about, Jane. Lisa, do you want to take that?
I'm not sure I can quite answer that in terms of the language, because the microsites instance is a kind of a separate kind of website. So it's still built on Drupal, but it's got the ability to have multiple sites built within it, and it's already kind of built in a way that anybody who doesn't have any coding experience can come along and just pretty much create a website. So it would it's got set up like certain themes already set up in it, certain colors, certain fonts. So you don't actually really need a developer to go in and create that for a microsite. But what was a bit different for us is that Kingston Heritage did get that get some developer input for us, because we had to get it done quickly, and they had their own theme as well that was a bit more advanced than a regular microsite. So I'm not really sure about the languages stuff. I can't really answer that, I'm afraid, but it's
absolutely fine.
If you look at the Kingston Heritage microsite, you could see like what we did there, and that's on the microsite. That's on the microsite's platform now. So we need to do a lot more work with that website, though. We're fully aware of that.
Great, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. I've just shared a link to our docs on microsite. So it was the sort of second product that came out of LocalGov Drupal, because councils were like, okay, great, we've solved. We've got the ability to change our corporate site. What about all these other sites? And so microsites was the sort of solution for that, as Lisa was saying.
It's really worth it as well, I think. You pay a little bit extra for hosting and things, but actually I think is going to be really good for scalability in terms of what other people want. And if you want to have something that's different from your branded corporate website, that's a really good thing to have.
Yeah. And then you get into the subsites versus microsites debate, which is on running. We will be doing a session in future on that because I think it comes up a lot. We're pretty much at time. There's a couple more questions, Lisa, if it's all right. So I'm just going to go into them. In fact, maybe it's only one. Let me just double check. Oh yeah. Okay. So Gareth was asking. So he's saying we're in the planning phase of redeveloping their website. Could you share what budget you allocated for the migration? Which I don't know if you've got to hand.
Oh, not at the top
Or
of my
maybe
head.
it's a percentage of the overall project.
I'm happy to pick that up separately. I'm not sure what I can and can't share either publicly.
Yeah, fair enough.
Happy to pick that up separately if the person wants to drop me an email.
Do you know what, in terms of like percentage of the overall budget, that sort of migration took? Because that's always one of the questions without sort of figures.
It was quite a big chunk of it, but it wasn't as big a chunk as development. So maybe about, I can't even think at the top of my head. It's been a while since I looked at those figures, but I think a third is maybe a quarter of it.
Okay.
Maybe that's a bit too much, actually. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's a while ago. I mean, Gareth, reach out to Lisa, and I'm sure she'll be, yeah, as you say, happy to answer that. And he followed up with, when you transitioned to your new website, how did you handle Google indexing? Did you implement 301 redirects for the old URLs to maintain SEO?
Yep. So at the very beginning, when we were migrating over, any new pages that were created, we had a massive spreadsheet. So we had all the new URLs against the old URLs as well. And then we did mass uploads of redirects. And then what we did as soon as we went live is that we monitored any 404s that came in, which you can do in LocalGov Drupal as well. And you could do in LocalGov Drupal. And then we would go in and just check them ourselves. So we watched them really carefully a few days after migration to make sure any ones that hadn't been covered were covered as well. So we did a lot of work to make sure their redirects were in place because our URLs were vastly different from the old site to the new site. And we were on top of that from the beginning. I would definitely recommend track early on when you're starting to move your pages, tracking a spreadsheet beforehand as well. And then you can also do checks afterwards to make sure that everything is working. We had our analytics consultant really help a lot with that piece of work, and that was actually what made it go really smoothly.
Thank you, Lisa. And Gareth says, thank you, Lisa. Great. I think we are at, I'm just checking the questions. No, I'm not seeing any more, so that's fab. Thank you so much, Lisa and Dolan. That was really fascinating and such a great topic for a lot of councils who are at the beginning of their journey. And I know quite a few are on the call today and others that I've spoken to recently. And just really useful to have a sort of timeline and share your approach, especially around that prioritization when you've got a hard deadline around time and moving off platform. I think it was really great. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate your time.
Very nice way to end the day. Thanks to everyone for coming and for your questions and comments. I hope you found it useful. We'll get the YouTube video up next week, probably. You'll get a feedback email in Luma. Please do share your feedback. It's really nice. Lisa's a host. You'll see it. And that's really nice to get, validation. I know she put in a lot of time, and Dolan as well put a lot of time into this presentation. Thank you to our sponsors, Anatech, Agile Collective, and Big Blue Door. There are loads more sessions this week. I haven't looked at what's on Wednesday. We definitely do have our AGM Wednesday afternoon, same time, 4 p.m. So if you're a member, as well as a subscriber, do join us for that. And that's it. See you soon. Thank you.